Hi, my name is Allison. I am the founder of Loop Life Academy, your trusted guide to help you and your family get out onto America's Great Loop with confidence and purpose. In this episode, we're going to explore what the first 30 days of life are like on the Great Loop for a family. Starting this adventure is filled with excitement and challenges as you start to adjust to life on board. So we're going to talk about how to settle into your new routine, including things like organizing your space, handling some of those emotional adjustments like homesickness, managing some of those early challenges. And we're also going to talk about things that are important like taking it slow so you can learn your boat systems and when to start homeschool, maybe documenting your journey. By the end of the episode, you're going to have a better understanding of what to expect during those really important first weeks. And that's going to help you set a strong foundation for the rest of the loop. Why is it important? Why do you care? These first 30 days on the Great Loop are really crucial for setting the tone of your journey because that lays, like I said, it lays the foundation for how you and your family will adapt to life on board. This initial period is when you're going to start figuring out routines, figure out how to manage your space and your stuff, maybe start to understand the pace of travel that's going to work best for you and your family. And it's kind of an intense learning period from mastering your boat systems to those emotional adjustments. And during those first few weeks, you'll also experience some of the highs and the lows of this adventure. There's going to be new challenges that you need to navigate, and there's going to be unexpected things that come up. And you're going to find your rhythm as a family on how you deal with this. And how you handle these early experiences can really influence your overall enjoyment and success of the loop. So if you take the time to settle in, be patient with the learning curve, and address any issues that come up, you're going to set a positive, resilient tone for the entire journey. And that's going to make it more likely that your family will thrive on the loop. So grab a cup of tea, get comfortable, and let's talk about what to expect for your first 30 days as a Loop Adventure family. First things first, let's talk about settling into life aboard. First, there's a lot of excitement and some overwhelm. The initial excitement is the thrill of starting the loop, and you're going to want to cover lots of ground. You want to live like a tourist, you want to do everything, you want to see everything, you want to stop everywhere, but you need to switch your mindset to live like a local in the new places you visit, so you don't get so overwhelmed and don't overextend yourself at every stop you make. During this initial period, you're also going to start realizing a little bit about your overpacking or underpacking. Overpacking, it's a little bit harder to identify that until you're well into your trip because it's hard to know what you're going to need. But the first few weeks is where you're going to realize what you've underpacked. Maybe there are things you forgot or didn't realize you were going to need while out on the loop. For us, it was some simple things like we were missing a can opener. So staying put when we moved to our boat, we actually moved from our house in Michigan to our boat out in Virginia. And so we filled up a small U-Haul trailer and just took a road trip and drove on out to the boat and moved in. And some of the things that we thought we packed, we never found them on our trailer. So maybe they went into storage. Maybe they got put in a donation pile. I don't know, but we had to go buy a few things that we thought we had or didn't think of and just didn't make it into the boat. So you're going to start to realize what are some of the things you've underpacked. Again, it's hard to know what you've overpacked until you've been on the boat for a while. This initial period is also kind of the stuff shuffle and the shakedown. The stuff shuffle, what I mean by that is you're going to feel disorganized when you first move on the boat. You're learning how to efficiently stow things unless you have a lot of space. We don't have a lot of space for the four of us and all of our things that we need. And so it took a little bit to figure out the best systems. And honestly, there's still a stuff shuffle that happens. We've been on our boat for well over a year at this point. We're gold loopers now, and we still have a stuff shuffle whenever we need to get to something. But we've become more efficient at it and gotten more used to it. At first, it's going to be kind of annoying though, because if you're coming from a house, you've got a lot of space to put everything away, and you don't have to move a bunch of stuff just to get to one thing. On a boat, chances are to get something, you're going to feel disorganized. It's going to be a little bit frustrating because you have to keep moving things out of the way. But you'll start to get the hang of where to stow things and where to put things, and hopefully remember where you put everything. This is also your period for a shakedown cruise. And this is really important to stay put for at least a couple of weeks, especially if the boat is fairly new to you and you haven't spent a lot of time on it, because you want to learn the systems of the boat and you want to make any necessary adjustments, start to get the hang of things. We hung out in Deltaville, where we moved onto the boat, for several weeks before we started our loop. This gave us time to mark our anchor chain so that we knew exactly how much chain we were putting out by visual markings on the chain. We had time to get those things that we underpacked or figure out how to shuffle things around. But we were also familiar with the boat mechanics and our boat broker and anyone that we needed to ask questions. They were all well available because we stayed put for a while and we were familiar with the area. So if you're able to do that, that is really, really helpful to make adjustments as you're in one area and do kind of some shakedowns to figure things out. Also think about very early on the health and safety parts. Adjusting to those different safety protocols and routines with your kids, especially, like life jackets. Where do you keep them? How do you put them on? When do the kids need to have them on? And kind of work on drilling that into them so they know exactly what to do, how to get it on themselves, and start to practice with them so that they're self-sufficient with that and they just know what they need. Emergency drills, you might want to think about some of those emergency drills, maybe do some age-appropriate planning or practice. I also made sure that our first aid kit, we have a pretty good first aid kit, and I made sure my kids had access to Band-Aids and a few of the age-appropriate kit items so that they could have some control in this new experience and a little bit of independence. So when they wanted or needed a Band-Aid, they could just go and get it and put it on themselves. And that helps, just giving them some control over something. So that was something that was helpful for my kids. Just small areas that you can give them some responsibility. Hey friend, we'll get back to the episode in just a moment. I hope you're enjoying this episode, and if so, please share it with a friend who needs to hear this today. I also want to give you a gift for hanging out with me today. I want to share my free Roadmap to Adventure checklist with you. Using this checklist, you'll be able to navigate the Great Loop planning stages without feeling so overwhelmed. It's designed to guide you step by step, so whether you're just dreaming or you're ready to launch, this checklist will help you get there. If you've already started planning or you're just curious, it's absolutely free. Just go to looplifeacademy.com/checklist. That's looplifeacademy.com/checklist. And you can sign up and get this free checklist right now. Back to the episode. The second thing I want to talk about is managing those early challenges, because the loop is not without challenges. It's not all easy peasy, but hopefully you know a little bit about what to expect as you're moving onto a boat and you're cruising for the next year. First off, there is going to be an emotional adjustment. It's not just the kids. Adults are going to have some adjustment to make as well. And sometimes that comes with some homesickness or just some added stress that you need to kind of be prepared for it and help your kids through it. We were lucky enough to have family that came to visit us within our first few weeks of moving to the boat. Remember, I said we loaded up a U-Haul trailer in Michigan and drove it out to the boat. Well, we did that with our own car, and we had family that was kind enough to come all the way out to Virginia, visit with us, and then drive our car back to Michigan. And that was really nice for us and for the kids to just have a family visit just a few weeks in to just kind of get that little taste of home. So think about what some of the things are that you might be able to do to help mitigate some of that homesickness, that emotional shift for yourself and for your kids. Some ideas you might think about. The kids, let them personalize their space. If they've got their own bedroom or at least their own bed or berth, let them have some favorite things from home, like some photos or toys, maybe a cozy blanket, but let them have some control over their space. Let them personalize that. Video calls and messages. This is something that's so easy now. Schedule those regular calls with some friends or family back home to help alleviate any feelings of isolation. You're maybe not used to going out and just meeting other cruisers yet. You maybe haven't had a chance to really start to socialize, and you might start to feel a little bit alone and isolated in your own boat space. And so reaching out to people and having those calls can help alleviate that feeling of isolation. You can also think about ways to share your journey, involving your loved ones in your adventure by sharing updates or photos. That can really help get other people involved and also makes you not feel alone. You might start a blog. That's pretty easy and free to do. You might get a digital photo frame that you have with family back home, and you can upload pictures to it on a regular basis. You might make a Facebook page for your boat or your trip or your journey that you post updates to on a regular basis. Those are all great ways to interact and to get others involved. Remember to focus on the positives too. Celebrate any small wins. There's lots of new skills for you and for the kids that you're going to learn while you are getting used to the boat. So any small wins, celebrate those. Whether that's anchoring for the first time, or a really smooth docking experience, or somebody tying a cleat hitch for the first time. Celebrate that. Those are all great things that anybody in your family might need a little bit of celebration for, and it really helps build that confidence up. And then make sure you have a support system. That could be with other loopers. You can use, there's an app called Nebo that a lot of other loopers use, and you can see them then on the map and identify them and reach out to them with a messaging system on that. Or if you're part of the AGLCA, you might be flying a white Great Loop Burgee. Other loopers are also going to be flying that. So look for those loop burgees in whatever anchorage or marina you're in and use that to meet some other loopers. Don't forget about online communities. There are the Great Loop Facebook groups. There are homeschool groups on Facebook, on Reddit, on, whatever communities that work for you. Don't forget about those. Those are really great support systems there. The biggest thing I want you to remember is that this is normal to feel homesick and not just for the kids. Make sure you prioritize your well-being, take time to relax, take time to exercise, maybe bring a few hobbies along that bring you joy that can fit on a boat, but it's normal. It's normal to feel homesickness, so take care of yourself so that you can also help your kids through this process. Another early challenge that you might need to figure out how to manage is your meal prep or your meal routine. So meal prep, it's really nice to have easy meals ready to go to avoid the reliance on restaurants and managing your tiredness and your emotions, because you will be tired, okay? Cruising is a tiring experience. You'll be tired at the end of the day if you've been driving the boat or just moving all day. So you're going to want to rely on easy meals whenever you can, especially on passage days. And if you rely on easy meals by going to restaurants, your budget might get wildly out of control if you get in the habit of eating out every day. If you've budgeted for that and that's what you already do back at home in your land house, that's great, no problem. But if you normally have home cooked meals in your land house, you're probably going to want to budget for that in your boat. So think of some easy things to make so that when you're tired, it's not a big ordeal to make a meal and you don't have to rely on restaurants. So here's a few of our favorite really easy meals. We will buy the pre-made pizza crusts and the squeezy tube of pizza sauce and then get some of everyone's favorite toppings and we make pizzas. It's super simple. Sometimes we make homemade crust, but guess what? You don't have to. Just get the pre-made stuff. It keeps in whatever stowage compartment you have. It keeps up fine. That's a great easy meal. If it's a little chillier out, pho and ramen and noodle soups that come in the little dry packets, super easy, okay? Those are another really easy way to go. You can dress it up a little bit by adding a little canned chicken if you want, but that's another super easy meal. A favorite on our boat is the Just Add Water pancake mix. Pancakes are very easy to make. Honestly, my kids are the ones who make the pancakes. So if they want pancakes, they just say, hey, I'm making breakfast today for everybody, or sometimes it's dinner. We do breakfast for dinner. They make the pancakes. So that's another great way to help your kids learn some independence and start cooking in the galley a little bit is making pancakes. So another super easy meal, okay? So just keep some of those things in mind to make it a little easier for yourself. As you start to adjust to things, think about developing a little bit of a routine that works for your family. I'm going to tell you right now, routine is kind of hard on the loop because are you moving the boat? Are you staying on anchor? It's a little bit different every day, and depending on where you are, if there's locks or things, there might be more involved in your passage than there would be in some other areas. If you're working full time, what does that look like? What do you need from your family while you work? For us, I would start my workday first thing, and my husband Chris would make sure the kids had whatever they needed to make breakfast or would help them get a good start to the day. And if we had plans or if I had work requirements, we'd make sure that the kids knew roughly what to expect so that we could all kind of know how to get through the day so that we all had the space we needed to get our obligations, our professional obligations done, but also make sure the kids had some activities and things to do. So think about, do you need to have some quiet mornings on board and then go to shore and play in the afternoon? Do you want to try doing some short passages, even if it's just out and back from the dock, just to kind of get the hang of things? Just keep that in mind. What kind of a routine might work for you? And as you get moving on the loop, you're going to start to understand what works for you. And this is where you also want to think about adjusting to the pace. So avoid the pressure to move too quickly. This is really hard to do. And I know we got caught up in this in especially in our first month, maybe even our first few months, but you want to do, like I said earlier in this episode, you want to do a little of everything. You feel like a tourist because you're in all these new places and you want to go everywhere and then you want to get to shore and visit all the stuff. And there's so much temptation to move and do too much because of all the excitement. So that's another reason to think about staying put initially, just to kind of start to get the hang of boat life. A common phrase that my husband likes to say is to loop is to move. And all of that movement is very tiring. And with all of that excitement of starting your adventure and trying to do all the things, you might start to burn out and that's going to catch up to you really fast. So take your time. Don't try to do everything so that you can make sure you take care of yourself and you're not overly exhausted. Another challenge that I want to just bring up is the budgeting, okay? Hopefully you've done a lot of thought and a lot of planning about your budgeting, but there are going to be unexpected expenses in the first month and really throughout the trip. This is where shakedown discoveries, you might find that there's something that needs replacing or fixing. You might need to upgrade something. There's probably, like I mentioned earlier, some forgotten essentials that you need to pick up. Maybe you're staying at a marina unexpectedly and there's utility costs. Maybe you're relying on eating out a little bit more than you planned on, especially as you got started because it's tiring. Restocking provisions. Some places might be more expensive than what you're used to back home because of the tourism in the area or the economic status of the area. So think about all of that, even like safety gear and fuel costs. Think about all of that in the budget and try to give yourself a little extra padding because there's going to be some unexpected stuff to come up. So if you can, have maybe an emergency fund set aside before you leave to help mitigate some of those surprises. But that's another challenge to just watch out for it. There's going to be stuff that comes up. The last category of things I wanted to mention about your first 30 days on the loop is building that foundation for your journey. Think about the education and homeschooling plan. As you're getting used to life on board, maybe think about delaying the formal schooling to let everyone start to adjust to life on board before you start, the actual book work. Kids are learning in every activity. If you go visit the parks or look at birds or fish or things that you're starting to discover as you're on the boat, that's still great learning experience. But maybe wait on some of the formal sit-down work just a little while until you start to kind of figure out what works for you. Give everyone that time to adjust because if you dive deep into school and have very long school days, on top of that, emotional adjustment of living on a boat and being away from home and maybe friends and family, it might be too much. So think about easing into some of those things and introducing it a little later into your journey just to give your kids some time to adjust. Think about keeping a journal, because the value of journaling or documenting the first month gives you a way to capture some of those emotions or those early challenges and triumphs. And this is not just for the adults, this is for the kids too. You can have them write in a journal, or maybe draw pictures if they're too young to write, or help them write a journal and capture some of those things that are their perspective of what's important in their life, what stood out in their day. If you're not big on writing and journaling isn't really your thing, maybe consider a journal app on your phone. I think my iPhone has a journal app that it prompts me every night with different photos or locations that it's detected I visited, and says, hey, write a little bit about this, explain these photos, do you want to put this entry in? And that's a quick and easy way to just kind of keep track of a few things too. So think about documenting things. You won't regret it if you do it. I wish I had been keeping a better journal. My husband and my kids thankfully did. And I really appreciate that they've captured some of their thoughts and emotions. And then don't forget to think about your communication and community. Stay in touch with family and friends back home. Think about your work commitments that you have during this initial phase. If you've got big projects and things that are happening right as you're moving on the boat, that's going to be really overwhelming. So think about that. And if you can do a little bit of planning to either have a little vacation time, or maybe during an easier time of year to move on the boat, just think about how much you have going on and the impact that might have. And then don't forget to connect with other loopers for support. They've all been through it or are going through it, and they might have some of their own advice during this early phase of your loop. You can get in touch with them either at your marina or your anchorage, through Nebo, or through just knocking on their hull and saying hello. You can reach out in different forums and groups online, but that's a great area to get some encouragement. To recap, there were a couple of different points I wanted to mention about that first 30 days of living on board as a family for your loop. First, there was settling into life on board. There's the excitement and overwhelm, the stuff shuffle and shakedown, and then the health and safety, getting used to the different safety protocols. All of that was all about settling into life on board. There were managing early challenges that will come up, handling those emotional adjustments, thinking about meal prep and routine, adjusting to the pace of being on the loop, thinking about your budget. All of that could be early challenges that you're starting to get a taste of, or need to figure out how to help manage and mitigate some of those things. And then third, we talked about building a foundation for the rest of the journey. When and how to start some homeschooling, how to document the journey and capture some of those emotions, and then remembering communication back home and community around yourself to make sure you have some support. The biggest thing that I really want you to remember is to be kind to yourself. The first month is all about adjustment, and it is okay if things aren't perfect, because they won't be. Some things are going to go wrong, or it won't be quite what you expected. That's okay. Be kind to yourself. It doesn't have to be just so. You're going to have to learn to be flexible and adapt. And again, that sets the foundation for what the rest of your journey is going to be like. For those of you that are watching on YouTube or listening to this episode on Spotify or another podcast app that allows for commenting, if you've already started your Great Loop adventure, what was your experience when you first started? What were those first 30 days like? And if you haven't launched yet, what's on my list that gave you maybe an aha moment or surprised you? Put that in the comments below. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on this. That's all for now. Thanks for hanging out with me today, and happy looping. If you're inspired to start planning your own family Great Loop adventure, be sure to check out our other resources at looplifeacademy.com and stay connected for more tips, stories, and inspiration. Until next time, happy looping.